The dictionary defines a paradox as a contradictory set of qualities. The Monticello plantation is a paradox. It's a beautiful plantation. This 5,000-acre plantation physically is beautiful. Its architecture is outstanding. It has lasted for centuries, bringing visitors from all over the world to admire its splendor. But the Monticello plantation also holds some of the darkest secrets in American history. It was the site of the enslavement of hundreds of African men, women, and children who were physically, emotionally, and sexually abused. Now, let's take a journey. Let's see for ourselves. The trip to the Monticello plantation was actually the idea of students in COM 300, Communication in the Black Diaspora. This is a course that I designed after traveling to Senegal and the Gambia, and after visiting some of the slave castles that existed that were part of the transatlantic slave trade. And I thought it impossible for any person, any human, to stand and experience what life must have been like and not to be driven to make the world better. And so part of how I wanted to do that was to come back to Morgan and do something. That something was the creation of this course. And it's in that class that students challenged me to let them see for themselves what I had been talking about.
So I wasn't currently enrolled in the COM 300 class, but one of my close friends, Jordan Brown, who is a graduate of Morgan State University, and she was my predecessor of the editor-in-chief of the Spokesman. So she and Trey Mitchell, who was the previous managing editor, went ahead and let me know that this was happening, and they told me that Professor Capano was going to be the one of the kind of hosts for the visit, and I knew that I wanted to have that experience so that I could go to the plantation. I'd never been to a plantation before, but I wanted to be able to have that experience as a Black student and as a Black person, to be able to be amongst other HBCU students and kind of have that spiritual experience.
As we took an historic trip, the first set of Morgan State University students on an organized trip to the Monticello plantation, I was mixed with emotions. On the one hand, I was befuddled why it took us so long to get there. On the other hand, I was quite understanding of why many folks might have been apprehensive, people of African descent in particular, of visiting a plantation. And I also was sympathetic to some of the reservations that students had expressed about what they thought they would experience on that plantation.
Like nervous or whatever you're saying. I was like, I don't feel nervous like anything's about to happen or weird in that sense, but I feel uneasy, just like I don't know what to expect.
Those feelings marinated in my mind, but ultimately the feeling that I think won was the feeling of pride. I was proud that all of us faced our fears. And we knew that in order to better understand who we are in the present and who to prepare to be in the future, we had to visit our dark past. And Monticello was just one step in a long journey towards our discovery.
Thank you. So the Monticello plantation was owned by Thomas Jefferson, who was the third president of the United States. Monticello sits in central Virginia. It's a very important historical site. Jefferson was part of a larger group of planters, plantation owners, who dominated Virginia during the 18th century. Well, the name he gives it, Monticello, mountain in the sky, those are allusions, those are classical allusions, right, to Europe. The style of the architecture of the main house, it's a great house, right, comes out of his ideas that he borrows from Europe, from Italy, those places, from France, those places. He sees himself as a member of the Enlightenment, the French-inspired intellectual movement, rationalism and those sorts of things. Jefferson is this sort of contradiction. Many people have pointed that out. You know, this sort of this Enlightenment thinker, who also happens to be, of course, one of the biggest slave owners. And Monticello becomes this important site, if you like, of America's own contradictory or paradoxical origins.
It is a beautiful place on the outside, architecturally and as far as the land, but I think that it is absolutely a place where horrors happened and where our people truly suffered. But the beauty, I think, is in the fact that we, as college students, as HBCU students, and as Black people, were able to kind of find our way back, and we were able to bring ourselves back to the plantation where a lot of probably our ancestors had been enslaved at one point. But we were there as educated Black people with the opportunities that they hadn't had. So I think that they were definitely smiling down on us at the time.
It is important for us to travel to places like Monticello to see, to walk, to feel, to experience in some kind of way what life must have been like for enslaved Africans, for our ancestors. There are recreations of homes that these men, women, and children had to sleep in. And we're talking about entire families having to live in these facilities. And you are just humbled, you are grateful, and that's why I go back to a word I use often. You are proud that you survived, that your ancestors survived so that you can be where you are today. And it is being at a place like Monticello that I think brings that home to all of us, just how horrific slavery was.
My name is Herbert Brewer, professor of history at Baltimore, Maryland, at Morgan State University.
My name is Ja'ai Selassie. I am a senior multimedia journalism major.
My name is Dr. Baruti Capano, and this is the Journey to the Monticello Plantation.